Hurricane Dorian. We had minor damage to approximately 12 homes and a small amount of debris. We are compiling information for North Carolina Emergency Management and Onslow County concerning damages from Hurricane Dorian. As you saw in the information I forwarded to you from Fran, we lost about 79,000 cubic yards of sand on the beach. Some was redistributed and made it look like we actually gained sand in some parts. And I will let you know if they foresee any assistance that we may be able to receive. We did have a contingency last week of FEMA, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, North Carolina Emergency Management, and others to come to town last Friday. And we discussed the storm and damages we incurred. We also drove along the beach. If anybody was on the beach the other day, that we had like 4 vehicles we were running a line. So, and this is all part of the preliminary process to see if we and the county may qualify for any assistance if the president has a major declaration for Hurricane Dorian. The Phase 5 Matthew project, this project was previously approved by FEMA for damages sustained by Hurricane Matthew. If you recall, you approved the bid by S.T. Wooten for the Phase 5 project. All contracts again have been executed, and the truck haul portion of the project is on schedule to start around November the 16th, according to Chris Gibson. I spoke to him a couple of days ago. For Florence damage, I have in today's package the proposal from Fran to prepare the bid documents for the Florence project. The Shoreline Protection Group has discussed this, and it clarified some of the items previously questioned by the board. This included rock remediation and the type of dredge utilized. And again, I'm recommending that this be approved by the Board of Aldermen. It's anticipated that these costs will be reimbursed by FEMA for the total project. And the project will touch every phase of beach within North Topsail Beach, which it includes Category G, which is the engineered beach, and Category B for the dune restoration on natural beach. The Corps of Engineers project, the North Topsail Beach Surf City Federal project, has still been in the works. I won't read through everything. You'll be able to go online and get this. But to give the history of the project, we are still waiting. We've been working with Surf City to make this beach nourishment a reality. We've sent letters of support to Wilmington and all the way to Washington, and we've had a conference call with officials in Atlanta. We were originally told it would be the end of August when we heard any news. At the last TISPC meeting, we were informed it would be a couple of more months before we would receive any word of whether our project would be included in this disaster relief funding. So we are still waiting for that as well. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers dredging project for the ICW New River Inlet Crossing and the channel to Jacksonville. I spoke this morning with Brandon Dooley of the Corps of Engineers concerning the project. As I previously reported, the bids were posted in August, and now they have an issue with the bids submitted, and they may need to repost them, or they may need to post them again. If this happens, this may not go back out till the middle of October and could shorten the environmental window, and I will let you know as this information comes back to us, but that's fresh from this morning. The town park repairs, the bid packets had to incorporate verbiage for needed insurance coverage, and I think the attorney was involved in that today, I think in an email that I think has clarified everything, and so those should go out hopefully tomorrow. The town hall, I'm sorry.
It was just insurance requirement.
Oh yeah, it was just the insurance requirement, that's correct. Town hall, I'll be distributing these 2 proposals for you from our engineer, Jim Stumbo, with Stewart, Cooper, and Newell. These proposals are for work on Town Hall. One is for the engineering plans for repairing Town Hall as is. The other is for repairing Town Hall as well as expanding space for the police department. I wanted you to see the proposals and to think about them, so there's nothing to do tonight. I'm just going to distribute them to you so you can look at them and think about what you'd like to do. Jim will be here at the November meeting to discuss the proposals. We have been told that FEMA will not give us any funding, and that's one of the reasons we were waiting around to see how we would move forward with this. They will only assist in rebuilding if insurance will not cover the expense. That is not the case for us because we have the insurance coverage to do the rebuild. And I want you to think about what you would like to do with Town Hall, which if you want to rebuild it as is, or if you'd like to expand it now to meet the space needs for the police department. Hurricane Florence Disaster Recovery Fund. We received an award of $250,000 and the check came from the hurricane. The check came during Hurricane Dorian, and this funding will be used for a loan repayment and staffing. We have a budget amendment ready for you in tonight's packet. This includes the $250,000 grant. $150,000 will go into the Fund 30 to assist in the debt service payment for the Phase 5 renourishment, and we have $100,000 to pay for a position in Public Works for that. Terminal groin. We have a signed agreement regarding the third-party contractor writing the EIS. Mickey Sugg for the Corps of Engineers had requested a meeting with those involved to discuss the next stages and expected timeframes. Mayor Tooman, Alderman Benson, Attorney Eads, India Mackinson, Rolf Engel of Dial Cordy, and Fran Way met with Mickey Sugg and the Corps last week to discuss the next steps with the EIS process. The quick timeline is as follows. Dial Cordy will present a projected timeline to the Corps to complete steps in the EIS process, and this will be completed sometime this week or next week, which would be this week, I believe, and we will also be notified at that point. The Corps will bring together a project review team. This will consist of 2 to 3 meetings, and it will include various stakeholders, basically fishermen, realtors, Turtle Hospital, environmental groups, and other local groups. There will basically be a talk of who, what, where, when, how, why of the EIS. A notice of intent will be published in the Federal Register. This will include information and date concerning the scoping meeting. And then the scoping meeting will be for more formal in nature. This is where the first comments will be received from the public. The participants will be separated into groups and all of their comments will be written down. Mickey did remind us that all reasonable alternatives will be included and equal in the modeling. And he said the U.S. Corps of Engineers will consider all needs by stakeholders and compare all reasonable alternatives in the most unbiased way possible to find the best solution. He also informed us that President Trump signed an executive order in 2017 to help streamline the EIS processes, and it only gives a 2-year window. And the Corps is investigating this, and we'll see if this will have any effect on our process at all. Onslow County, we have received a contract from Onslow County for the Tourism Development Grant. We requested $350,000 in the application. The contract has offered for $150,000, and I think we'll be discussing this later. And then the Jeffries lease. I received the lease proposals for the Jeffries lots. We forwarded it to the town attorney for his input, and I read through the agreements myself, and there are 2 items added we specifically requested. This includes the ability to have paid parking in those lots, and also to have the first right of refusal if they decide to sell the property. And it's actually good news that we thought that they might be trying to sell these properties, so now it looks like we'll have them for 5 years and possibly 10 years down the road, parking for visitors to our town. And then I have one other item to share. At the September 17th meeting, I informed the board that I would be resigning my position as town manager of North Topsail Beach. I have a letter, and I presented it to the clerk as a matter of record. Since I've given my resignation, the town now has some other openings of department heads who are leaving. 2 submitted their retirement papers, and another who has submitted their resignation. I want everybody to know my last day will be December 31st, but as you know, I do not currently have another employment opportunity. Therefore, I am willing to stay longer if needed to make sure these positions are filled, with the understanding that I may not have to be as flexible if I get another position. It was a difficult decision, but I think it's the right one. I do want to thank you for allowing me to serve the citizens of North Topsail Beach. It's been an honor. So, thank you.
You need a motion, Mayor? Accept the resignation?
Yes, please.
So reluctantly, I move that we accept the resignation of Manager Chadwick as Town Manager of North Topsail Beach effective December 31st, 2019.
Thank you, Michael. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to accept the resignation of the town manager. Clerk, pull the board.
Okay, if you don't mind, I'll step around so Alderman Peters can hear. Alderman Leonard,
Aye.
Alderman Benson,
Aye.
Alderman Hyde,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Aye.
Alderman Peters.
No.
No, okay.
All right, by a vote of 4-1, the town accepts the resignation of the town manager. Now, are there any questions to the town manager on his manager's report?
I have a question on the town hall. Has the insurance been settled on that? Do we know what's going on with that since it's all going to be an
Not
insurance
yet.
issue?
It is still open as far as the insurance. They gave us an initial amount, and if it goes over that, then we will be able to go back to collect that, because it's actually, they gave us what their estimate was, but if the amount is different, then we can go back, because we had $1.5 million was what we had it insured.
On the building, and they gave us enough funds to put the building back as it was
Yeah.
pre-Florence.
So we're covered to build it back as
But
is?
if we go in and we find out that the cost is actually gonna be like $400,000 to put it back to pre-Florence, then we will go back to, Wales Insurance and submit for additional funding.
And I do have an grant application I've been discussing with the Golden Leaf Foundation, once we decide what we would like to do. And if we rebuild it as is, then I'm going to ask them to make it more hurricane resilient. And so we're going to ask for metal roofing, some reinforced windows to upfit it like that. And also of these two proposals, I'm also going to ask them to fund the engineering, which is what these proposals are.
That is probably the most asked question I've gotten in the last month. What's going on with Town Hall, and when are we going to see some progress here from the citizens, and to include all the tarps blew off the roofs, and now the edges are just hanging open. People want to know, can't we at least put a roof on it?
And that's actually, we are working on that RFP right now to go ahead and put a roof on it. Actually, I'm not sure if Thomas is here. He and I, he's getting that.
I knew last week he was working on the RFP
Okay.
to, request, giving some bids from the group.
And we are going to go ahead and put in, we're going to do a metal roof.
I was just gonna say, I thought part of that was trying to find out if we could get the grant to upgrade it to a metal roof.
Right. Well, the good thing about these grants is that some of them, they will go back even if you've already do the work.
Perfect.
So we're not putting a tarp on, we're just going ahead
And putting a roof, because it is not leaking. It may look like it is, but it is not. But if we go ahead and do the roof, then we'll do it.
Do you have any idea, if we were to restore it as is, how long it would take?
Oh man, I can't remember what. Chief, were you? I was trying to think. Chief Youngener has been in those.
He was talking about
A year, I want to say.
1 year?
Yeah.
As is, correct?
As is, that's correct, yes.
So 2 years from the event.
Any other questions from the board for the town manager on his report? Okay.
I do have one question on the town park. I have a 4-year-old constituent that keeps asking me, when's it going to be done? Do you know how long it will take to get the bid package out and all that kind of stuff?
For the bid package, hopefully by the end of December. That's what, as far as for it to be done within the December and January timeframe.
Completed or the
Yes,
bid?
completed.
The town?
Yes, the
Okay.
town. Because
New Year's Day?
Party at the park.
Right.
Jerry gets to push her the first time in swing.
Yeah. Ribbon cutting, there you go.
All right. No further, thank you, Manager Chadwick, on your report. The next item on the agenda is the open forum. Anybody in the audience who wants to address the board, come forth. Has anybody signed up?
Yes, sir, we have two. The first person to sign up is Mr. Larry Baldwin.
Here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Aldermen. My name is Larry Baldwin. The introduction is going to be fairly lengthy. I work for Coastal Carolina River Watch, which is based in New Bern. But as such, I am both the Crystal Coast Waterkeeper and I'm the advocacy coordinator for White Oak New Bern Keeper Alliance. And you may have heard of that organization. They've been around for quite a while. My main purpose tonight is, first of all, to introduce myself. If there's anything that we can do to help support the town in the way of environmental issues, environmental health, just looking at things, even an EIS, those types of things, we're more than willing to do that. It's our goal to help be those advocates for continued clean water, not just in this town, but also throughout Onslow and Carteret County. So my real reason for being here is to applaud you for the recent adoption of the resolution opposing seismic testing and offshore drilling. To us, that's huge. And if you're following this issue, it's been going on a fairly big roller coaster for a number of years. And having North Topsail Beach adopt a resolution opposing both seismic testing and offshore drilling to us is huge. So for that, we say thank you. We appreciate it. And like I said, we're still here for anything that we can help out with. My one request would be is if you have any influence with the Onslow County Commissioners for them to adopt a resolution opposing, that would be extremely helpful, because that's kind of a stone wall I've been running into for several months.
We don't exactly exchange Christmas cards with them.
I'm sorry?
Unfortunately, we don't exactly exchange Christmas cards.
Well, you're probably still better off than I am. I'm not sure what I'm going to receive this Christmas, but it's not going to be good.
It won't be a bonus, huh?
No, not at all. So again, I wanted to introduce myself. I will send the town clerk my contact information at some point. So again, we're here as a resource. We have a beautiful place we live here, and we've got to protect it. And what you all did here is a major step in that regard. Thank you. We do appreciate it greatly.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming forth.
And the next person to sign up is Mr. Jonathan Elliott.
Long-term you're in. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Board. So I just want to bring up a small thing, hopefully get a change made. So we've been having quite a few problems with traffic at the north end of the island, between where the intersection of New River Inlet and Seagull Lane. We are missing a few stop signs there. Supposed to be 20, and then the area at the split there is a 35, and of course everybody has to go 10 over. So they're going 45. It's a very narrow road, no sidewalks. So we're walking back and forth, and people are just flying past us. So just a little bit of a public safety, if we could maybe look into that, possibly bring it down to 25, putting up some pedestrian signs, something to help the public good there.
Okay. That's a reasonable request to the town manager and the public works director to go and examine that. One of the things, disappointment, is the Department of Transportation was going to present a comprehensive transportation plan this evening. Basically the outlook for roads in North Topsail Beach, and I saw a little bit of the information. I'm really disappointed because I'm very enthusiastic as to what we're putting in their plan, and I hope it doesn't change between now and when they come forth. But they're talking about widening both Highway 210 and Highway 1568 by 2 feet, okay? And on the case of 1568, adding shoulders to the road also. And I live in your neighborhood, and when I drive by, there are you know, there's a lot of pedestrian traffic, people walking dogs, and cars. Maybe I'm the culprit. Speed by, and maybe if there were a sign, I might pay attention. Okay, so I'm sensitive to your problem, and I'm sure the town manager will be also. Okay, anybody else on the list signed up? Anybody in the audience who hasn't signed up still wants to come forth and make comment?
Morning, Barrett, at 246 Sandpiper. I used to work down at the inlet until there were some issues, but we've got those resolved. On the parking, I've been thinking that possibly speed bumps on Seagull, so everybody uses the new river end road. All roads coastal Oyster Port, they have yield signs, so that promotes the residents not to stop, not to slow down. Excuse me. But yeah, I'd love to see a committee on that and not just willy-nilly go throw some signs up and be done. People go down there now, they get to the community, they think it's a dead end, they turn around, they go back, they go to, Cameron's house, they think it's a dead end, they turn around and go back. So it needs to be posted better and not just one sign here, one sign there. So that's all I've got.
Thank you,
Committee
Mr.
be established and not just willy-nilly.
Thank you, Mr. Barefoot. Anybody else want to join in on this open forum? If not, we'll move on. Okay. The next part of the agenda is the public presentations and hearings. Okay, and the first order of business is a resolution of appreciation for the Hampton Inn. Town Manager Chadwick, please.
All right. Is anyone from the Hampton Inn here? Okay, well, and they weren't sure if they were going to be able to make it tonight, but as many of you know, the Hampton Inn was gracious when we set up our EOC during Hurricane Dorian. It was very effective. They were extremely cordial, and it was really a good place to be with having our emergency operations center there. And we just wanted to do a resolution of appreciation for them because of their hospitality, and I mean they were extremely cordial. And we had a lot of townspeople staying there too, so it was just it was really good. So, and I'll go ahead and read it just so you can hear it. Whereas the first week of September 2019, the town of North Topsail Beach was in the path of Hurricane Dorian. And whereas the town officials, first responders, and other key groups remained in the area to monitor the storm, manage the response, and restore government services as soon as possible. And whereas, in service to the community, the Hampton Inn gave the town of North Topsail Beach first priority for overnight accommodations and conference rooms to establish communications and command centers. And whereas Ms. Rebecca Scott was instrumental in organizing this operation, she was responsive and proved to be an expert problem solver. Ms. Scott directed the following employees during the town stay at the inn, and their support and tireless efforts were likewise appreciated. And I won't go through all of them, but there are a number of employees who were involved in that. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of North Topsail Beach greatly appreciates the Hampton Inn of Sneads Ferry for their willingness to serve their community in a time of need. Adopted this third day of October 2019, and all the board has signed that.
All right. So, even though we've signed it, can we have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, a resolution is approved. Next item is the coastal engineer proposal. You had already briefly discussed in your manager's report.
And I was trying to look to see if I could find it here. There it is. Well, we had previously presented this to you, I believe it was in July, at the July meeting, and there were a couple of questions as far as the rock remediation almost to make sure that we weren't gonna have that. And then also, with the type of dredge, so those have been answered. And the rock remediation, they're gonna have, it's gonna be right on site. They're gonna be screening it right there.
Okay.
Go ahead.
When I was reading it again before the meeting, Brian, my
Mhm.
question was on timing. So it looks like we've got the current project that's gonna be a truck haul project down on phase 5,
Mhm.
right, that you talked about Chris Gibson getting started.
Mhm.
And then the timing on, so this one will be a dredge project, and it will be focused on the lost sand on the engineering beaches, and it will be focused on a dune restoration for the entire,
For the, well, yes,
Right.
and like, throughout phases 2 through 4 as well.
so what would the part I didn't understand was the timing, like, will we complete that truck project and then this one?
This one will not go until, we talked about it,
The
the
FEMA funds?
2021.
Oh,
yes.
2021, okay, that was the part I was, okay, thank you.
Mhm.
We're still on for an engineering meeting on the beach on the 18th.
On the 17th.
17th?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm sure the details of this project
Yes,
will
and
again will be
Fran will be
discussed.
here, yes, Fran's going to be at that meeting.
The project, as I understand it, is basically to restore the so-called phase 5, the 3.5 to 4 miles from the Surf City, restore the beach from the Surf City line going north, okay, to the condition it was pre-storm, and that is primarily the majority of the project, and then a small effort to restore dunes, damaged dunes over the rest of the town outside phase 5.
That's correct, and
Okay.
it will all be dredged, and it'll be in phase 5, and then we'll do a truck haul from where we're dredging in the phase 5 area, and it'll be a truck haul.
And anyway, what I'd like to discuss when we get together on the 17th is,
Okay.
rather than wait until 2021 on this project, whether or not we can, when we complete the Matthew truck haul restoration, if we could continue that and do the Florence phase 2 to 4 on the heels of it. Okay. So, if it's possible. And I think, an issue also is to whether or not if we've gotten FEMA approval for that aspect of the project.
Yeah, well, the FEMA,
As far as for that initial work, we have not gotten 100% approval from FEMA. It is still in that EHP process. As a matter of fact.
and EHP stands for Environmental Historical Preservation.
So,
Clarify, I mean, there's so-called category G and category something or other.
Yeah,
I mean, has any of it been approved by FEMA?
No.
Okay, so it's still an open
Yeah, the
issue.
request is there, but it has not been.
Officially, they haven't supported. Okay.
It's going through, and that process specifically, dealing with the Cobra Zone, is making it more complicated.
All right, and so, what are you looking for?
I would like to have Fran begin this work as soon as possible to get the bid packet, to start working on this bid packet. If you don't want to vote on it tonight, you can vote, at the 17th meeting. I'll leave that up to you. To the board, excuse me.
Wouldn't the bid packet be helpful for FEMA to understand how much this project's gonna cost? Yeah. So,
I believe the sooner we get this motion passed, the sooner the work can be done, so.
Is there anything that we will know the 17th about this that we don't know right now?
Probably not.
That answers the question.
Unless we may have an answer from FEMA by that time. That would be the only thing.
What's the likelihood of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion for the town approval of the coastal engineer proposal as presented in your
So moved.
package?
Second.
Okay. Clerk, poll the board.
Alderman Benson.
Aye.
Alderman Hyde.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Aye.
Alderman Leonard.
Aye.
Alderman Peters.
Aye.
Aye, okay. All right. Coastal engineering proposal package, it has been approved. Moving on, consent agenda. Do I have a motion regarding tonight's consent agenda?
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, consent agenda is approved. Moving on to continuing business. Item A, revetment committee updated possible action. Alderman Benson.
Thank you, Mayor. The last time we asked the board to have the town attorney complete agreement with Rental Engineers, the restoration of the revetment on the north end. And the minor detail really is what we need to do tonight, is to clarify. We need to have a motion to approve Rental Engineers as our approved engineer in place of the engineer that's board approved last year.
I believe the wording should be, if the board's inclined to make the motion, to substitute Arundel for Green.
Right. So the motion is to substitute Arundel Engineers for Gary Green Engineers.
That's your motion. Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion?
I have a question. So, Brian, just to clarify again for the audience as well as us, so if this motion gets approved tonight, the next steps would be for the completion of a signed contract?
Negotiate the final terms of the contract to bring to the board for its consideration.
So this motion tonight is really just getting the both teams working towards that common goal?
Correct.
To get it completed? Okay, thank you.
Any other?
Are there any legal ramifications of this substitution?
Well, I mean, if you're seeking legal advice, that'd be better. We should do that in closed session.
Okay.
But could you clarify your question, because it may not be a legal opinion you're looking for.
I'm just wondering whether there's going to be any fallback from blowback from Green on this.
That's
if
a
the
closed
con-
session thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can talk about that in closed session. And just for the public's knowledge, if you haven't seen this in prior meetings, according to Mr. Benson and reports from the committee, Mr. Green has not been responding, is that correct?
That's correct.
And the other engineer that was originally proposed as the second choice was Arundel.
That's
right.
That's correct.
And now, in light of the reported non-responsiveness of Mr. Green, the committee would like the board to substitute Mr. Green with their second choice.
Exactly.
But my understanding is also though that the committee or the town never entered into a legal contract with the first engineer. We had never received one. So we're not, in fact.
Under contract. Right?
Exactly.
That was pretty much the holdup, was that he
Wasn't
forthcoming with the requested documentation to go down that path.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Again, clerk, poll the board.
Alderman Hyde.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Aye.
Alderman Leonard.
Aye.
Alderman Benson.
Aye.
Alderman Peters.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passed unanimously. All right. Going on to the next item. Has to do with the approval of minutes from an emergency meeting on September 4th, 2019. Alderman Benson.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a question about the motion that was made to approve the hurricane preparedness plan at the emergency meeting on September the 3rd. And so we tabled that discussion at the last board meeting because Alderman Leonard, who made the motion to approve the hurricane preparedness plan, was not there to answer a question that I had about his motion.
Okay.
And his motion says that would eliminate the comments that I had made in the plan. And my interpretation of comments were the 14 comments that I questioned in the plan. And the reason we needed to remove those comments was because you can't have an approved plan if you still got comments in it. So his motion was just to take my comments out. Unfortunately, I think staff interpreted that differently, because I also had insertions. For instance, on page 2, I inserted I'll just read this. Tier 2, these employees will help with emergency preparations but will dismiss. And what it should have said was will be dismissed. So my insertion was to improve the grammar of the sentence. Okay? In other places, I inserted Pender County, because many of our residents are going to evacuate through Pender County, not Onslow County, because they're closer to the Surf City Bridge. So we should be aware of the Pender County evacuation plans. So I inserted Pender County along with Onslow County wherever it said Onslow County evacuation or emergency plan or so forth. So that's the question, Alderman Lennon. What was your motion intention?
The intention was to remove everything in blue. I think that was what we voted on.
Well, let's go back and let's talk about comments and insertions. Because blue, there's a lot of blue in this document. Some of it's blue purple and some of it's blue green. So are you talking about comments, or are you talking about insertions, or are you talking about both comments and insertions?
I'm reading the comments now, Mike, and what I'm talking about is what was in blue. The blues that are, the word, it has comment, and then in brackets it has MB, which I assume are Mike Benson, and the issue was, and the intent was that they were comments and not edits, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, there were a lot of them. I mean, I'm going through it now.
Yeah, that's what I just
We're on like
explained.
page 15, and you know, we're up to like 50, but they're not changes. They're comments.
I want to make 14 comments, and those are what you want to remove, correct?
I want to say yes.
Okay. The insertions that I made were part of your motion to be included in the plan.
Say that again.
Would you like me to go back? I'll
You
go
got
back
me
and
confused,
read
bud.
this sentence again that I corrected. Tier 2, these employees will help with emergency preparations but will dismiss. I corrected the grammar to say will be dismissed. That's an insertion.
Okay.
And I assume those should stay in the plan, because we don't want a plan that has poor grammar.
Yeah, that would be pretty bad with a college professor on the
It sure
board.
would. It sure would.
Okay, I'm just trying to get through these things right now, and I did review it again today because I knew we were going to talk about this. And
And
I'm
then the
with
part
you.
about Pender County, I mean, that's a glaring error not to have Pender County in the plan, because most of us are gonna evacuate, not most of us, the south end of town is gonna evacuate the Surf City Bridge. So we need to be aware of the Pender County evacuation plan.
No, I'm good with it. I
Okay.
understand where you're going.
All right.
Comments come out, the changes stay. Is that what we're saying?
That's all we're asking for.
Okay, we good with that? Everybody good with that? All
Well,
right.
the question is, was that the motion that you made?
The motion that I was made is exactly what's reflected in the minutes, okay?
So the consequence would be?
It was, let me go back here. Made a motion to approve minus Alderman Benson's comments in blue.
Yeah.
Okay, so comments versus changes.
So we're just clarifying.
Yeah, okay. So the minutes stand as written.
Right, and so the staff just
So
misinterpreted
we'll,
the.
staff, we will fix that, now that that's clarified.
So, Tom, the other thing we talked about while you were not in the last meeting too is, again, after this event happened too, staff is gonna go back through the plan and
Sure.
see if they wanna make any recommendations to the board.
Right.
So this is a living document, we'll
Well-
get to review it again.
What I think we should do, as a matter of course, and I don't know how we codify this into the document perhaps, but every time that we have to exercise this plan in a real world scenario with a named storm, we should automatically, after action it, get comments from staff and board, and it should be put on the agenda for the board retreat that winter, and we go through and just go ahead and make sure that everything's good and make the changes that are made. And one of the reasons, just from background, why this was rushed through was we were working with the document, as the manager has said prior to this. The document had not reflected, this document incorporated all the changes that were made from the lessons that we learned during Florence. And I felt it was important that we get this thing on the street and be able to use it for when Dorian came, because if Dorian had come the way it was supposed to, we were going to really get to use it. And so that was the issue there. But I think every time that we have to exercise it real world, that we automatically go ahead and go through the review process, and it becomes a standard issue item on our board retreat that spring.
And just to give you a heads up, during that time, I did tell everyone that we would, at the last meeting, that we were gonna go through it in December, at December's meeting.
Okay.
I mean, if you'd prefer to do it at the board retreat, that's fine.
Either one, but I just would like to see it somehow standardized and maybe incorporated into the next draft of the document, you know, and I'll write the words up if you want, but the idea is that it is, as Joanne said, a living document, subject to review and change and updating as we learn.
I would say on an annual basis, I wouldn't even say, because if we don't have a storm, it doesn't mean we shouldn't look at it, things change. So I would just say
Sure.
as an annual basis, whether that's December or the retreat, I'm fine
Yeah.
with either, but
You know, if nothing else, it'll force people's hand to open it up and review it again.
Yes.
And it'll be fresh on our mind if we have to use it 6 months later.
I agree.
All right, I think we pretty much exhausted that discussion.
You did.
I think we should approve the September 3rd minutes now.
Oh,
That's what
okay,
we-
you wanna make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the September 3rd minutes.
And I'll even second it.
All right. We have a motion and a second. We don't have any more discussion, correct?
Nope.
Okay, all in
Wait.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. September minutes are approved from the emergency meeting. All right, moving on. Budget amendments, we have two, right?
Mayor and Aldermen, tonight you have two budget amendments in your packet. Originally there was one, but we got a last minute request this morning. The first one is to increase the budget by $50,000. When we applied, when Mr. Chadwick applied for the grant from the North Carolina Recovery and Resiliency Department, we weren't sure exactly how much we were going to get, so when we presented the budget in June, we only estimated $50,000. But however, we know we received $250,000 in July. So therefore, we'd like to take the additional $50,000 and put that into the Public Works Department for them to hire another employee because they need the staff. So that money will go to cover, of course, the salary, any withholding tax, health insurance benefits, and retirement benefits.
All right. Can you run through, I missed those, can you run through those numbers again? If we budgeted,
Yeah, and if you look in the financial report that I sent you, the budget to actual, it shows grant proceeds of $50,000, but we've already put in $100,000 because that's what we received from the check. But we cannot use that money until you budget for it.
Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to accept or to approve the budget amendment for the $50,000 for the Public Works staff member.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, budget amendment approved. Betsy, number two.
Number two, The police department's been working on a grant from the governor's crime commission for well over a year now. And luckily this morning, they finally received notice that they were awarded over $23,000 to buy supplies for their department. So therefore, in order to use this grant, which is a 0% match, so they get the full $23,000. Of course, we have to pay for it first, and they will reimburse us. But it's to buy stuff that, such as tasers and all the equipment that belongs to that. So therefore, we're requesting another approval of the budget amendment to increase the police department's budget by $23,714.
I'll make the motion to approve budget amendment 2019-20.2 as presented.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Tasers.
2 budget amendments approved tonight. Thank you, Betsy.
Thank you.
Last item on new business, the Topsail Island Shoreline Protection Commission's substitute voting member, Alderman Benson.
Thank you, Mayor. The Topsail Shoreline Protection Commission has 3 members from each of the 3 communities. In our case, North Topsail Beach has had 2 aldermen and a member from the stakeholders, an at-large member. Recently, Alderman I moved from the at-large position to an alderman position. So, because of public meeting laws, we cannot have 3 aldermen sitting on a panel making decisions. So we need to elect a new at-large citizen to sit on the Topsail Shoreline Protection Commission until at least after the election. And maybe.
Okay. So.
And then in December, normally in December, Mayor, we will reappoint the committee, so this, for the time being, this would just be an appointment through this year. Right?
I'm sorry, is there a motion in?
The motion is to appoint an at-large member to replace Alderman Hyde on the Topsail Island Shoreline Protection Commission through the remainder of 2019.
You're firing me?
You're fired, Jerry.
Well, no,
You've got to move here.
he's gonna be out in the audience, but because he's a junior member from the board, he would be, and if one of the other 2 members couldn't attend the meeting, Alderman Hyde could, and the 3 of us couldn't, Alderman Leonard's the second backup.
He's not disqualified automatically when he accepted the position as alderman of.
He was
kind of was.
disqualified.
Yeah,
technically.
unfortunately he was. You know, the funny thing about this is the 4 years I was on Shoreline Protection Commission, we didn't really worry about it.
Well, let me understand what we're doing.
Well, then maybe we need to have a.
So,
But no, you're
we're
doing it right.
announcing
I'm okay.
we're announcing per, I guess,
You need to speak up.
ground rules of the TISBC, that there's an open position for North Topsail Beach, an at-large position, okay, that we need to fill.
That's correct.
So what are we gonna do? We're gonna advertise that position publicly to see if there are applicants?
Well, I would suggest that we look to the town clerk to see who has applied for committee service to the town, and maybe you consider whoever has applied in the last year or so for service on committees to the town, and choose one of those persons.
I would suggest that we advertise it and see what the interest in the community is, because just because you've applied, in my opinion, just because you've applied to a position to volunteer, it would have been for like the planning department or zoning or something of that nature, it might be totally unrelated to the shoreline. So,
These meetings also are usually during the day for the Shoreline Protection Commission, so if somebody who's applied for who works a full-time job, who's applied knowing that the planning board and the board of adjustments and those kinds of things usually go after hours, may not just automatically, even if they're interested, be able to accommodate this if they work full-time.
So I guess we need to announce that we have an opening, okay, and see if we have applicants. Because I don't know of anybody specifically who applied for the Topsail Island Shoreline Protection Commission.
Not specifically, no, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, because we didn't advertise it, we didn't have a vacancy.
So we don't really need an emotion. We're just announcing that in fact we have an opening and.
Right. As I understand it, you have a majority plus consensus to advertise it.
Correct.
Yes.
So you don't need a motion.
Yeah. Actually, what happened is we did appoint Jerry Hyde.
Yeah.
But then Jerry Hyde became disqualified when he was appointed again as a board member. Never volunteer for nothing.
It is a temporary disqualification.
All right, so, I mean,
Third
that's
time
the
is not a
action.
charm.
We'll make an announcement that there is an opening. Okay, very
You don't want me,
good.
I ain't showing up.
Let's move on. Second open forum, okay? Anybody now that they've listened to us want to come forth and make comments or recommendations to the Board of Aldermen?
Mayor, Miss Susan Meyer actually has signed up.
Oh.
Hi, sir.
Oh.
There's a surprise.
Something new.
For open forum, okay, thank you,
Okay,
Susan.
yes, Susan Meyer, 2224 New River Inlet Road. The reason I am speaking tonight is to remind everyone about the Meet the Candidates Day on October 20th. It had to be rescheduled for North Topsail Beach. All the candidates that are running are going to be there, and it's going to be a pretty laid-back forum. They will get up and speak for about 10 minutes. If they want to entertain questions, they may. It's entirely up to them, and then there will be a little bit of time afterwards for you to talk to them one-on-one if you'd like, and we will have entertainment on our deck, and it will be at the Brass Pelican at 3 o'clock. They'll actually start speaking around 4. And anything else? There'll be some hot dogs and popcorn.
Happy hour prices on beer?
Yes, because
Just had to know.
in North Carolina, the happy hour is all day.
Especially at the Brass Pelican.
Everyone. Anyway, thank you.
You said
Thank
October
you.
20th?
October 20th, yes, it's a Sunday afternoon, and it'll be on the back deck.
And you'll have football on too?
No, we'll have football
I will
inside.
be on a cruise.
Susan, thank you. Fred?
Thank you. Fred Burns, 2378 New River Inlet Road. I'd just like to thank Mr. Peters, everything he's been through, and when I was mayor, everything that came up before the board, he was out. If it was a zoning issue or anything, he was out there every day. And before he came to meetings, he was prepared. And this just goes to show how faithful he is to this town. And I'd like to give him a round of applause for being what he is.
Richard, did you hear that?
Yes, I did. I want to thank you sincerely for all the praise and upward messages and prayer that have been conveyed toward me. So thank you all. I've been kind of remiss. I haven't thanked individual requests as they came, but I particularly want to thank you, and I'm glad to be able to speak to you tonight and thank everyone.
Very good, Richard. Listen, get well, and we're looking forward to having you back soon.
Thank you.
Okay.
That was really nice of you, Fred. It really was.
Lost my agenda. Attorney's report.
Two quick things. We have some things to discuss in closed session, of course, but out here, which most of coastal folks probably already know, but on September 18th, Governor Cooper signed Senate Bill 429, disaster recovery. It appropriated $22,675,000 to the Department of Environmental Quality. Of that money, $11,500,000 is to be used for grants to local governments, up to $2.5 million per grant. We were very fortunate in this hurricane. I don't know how much eligibility we will have. I know the Outer Banks was hit much harder than us, but there may be an opportunity for some funding there. Secondly, since last month's meeting, Ms. Dorothy Steinbieser from the U.S. Corps of Engineers, she's in the real estate acquisition branch down in Savannah, Georgia. They are essentially the clearinghouse on easements or rights of entry. Mary, you'll recall, we dealt with her. You may have seen some of her emails with respect to the project that's going to go down this fall. She has provided me with the required language the Corps must have in the easements for the federal project, any project that's going to have federal funding. So we have that language in hand now. Most towns don't have, in historical easements, what we've obtained in the past, don't have a couple of phrases. So we will start the process of getting the required core easements or rights of entry for the federal project, because I'm most optimistic about that project going forward since I started working here over a decade ago. So those are my two items for out here. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor's report. Okay, I've got several things, and I'll provide the information to the clerk, and she can publish them either in email or put them on our website. We have a letter from the State of North Carolina Department of Transportation announcing that, in fact, again, we qualify for Powell bills, monies to repair our roads or even create new roads. The overall amount for the state is $147 million plus, okay, distributed statewide, and the formula for the amount that you get depends on your local population and the length of the streets. So that's money that's coming to us. I've got a letter from the Jacksonville-Onslow Economic Development Group. Okay, I'm a member of that. They're developing a 5-year plan. They want my input specifically, and for time immemorial, their strategic plan has primarily focused on expanding and creating jobs in the manufacturing sector. What I hope to do is now to get them to include the tourism industry, of which we are a major factor. Yeah, the last month I talked about a CRC public hearing on the 15th of October, having to do where the CRC is looking for public comment on some updated proposals on vegetated, unvegetated setbacks and ocean erosion rates. Okay, I thought it also included newly proposed, Science Panel proposed inlet erosion rates, which are significant, have significant impact. I've been advised that, in fact, this hearing on October 15th does not include the inlet or the proposed new inlet hazard area. Rather, that hearing will be scheduled sometime in the month of December. I've checked some of these numbers with our planning director, and there's a concern for properties in the beach club and along River Road that, in fact, with the proposed erosion rates, some of the lots, vacant lots there would be unbuildable. So I think for people who live in that neighborhood, okay, that we should be aware of the impact and comment accordingly. There's some question on the validity of these erosion rates, so I have a feel for how they were developed. On the other hand, there are letters, and I have them from the Department of Coastal Management that said, you know, if these are troublesome, there are other options available to you that would lessen the impact. And I still see one stumbling block that I discussed with our planning director. So when the hearings are announced in December, I suggested maybe the town will contact those property owners that were affected, just to make them aware that they may need to go for their own best self-interest and comment before the CRC. Okay, and the 2019 inland setback factors proposal, okay, is available at Town Hall. Okay, so anybody of interest may want to go ahead and look at that. That includes my report. So, Alderman, yes, sir.
Mayor, if I may, I forgot one item on my report, and I think the public would like to know this. You recall that Ocean Isle and the Corps were sued by the National Audubon Society with respect to their terminal growing in the permitting process. My friend and colleague Todd Rossler represents Ocean Isle in that case. On the September 25th, Judge Louise Flanagan, federal judge overseeing the case, entered a 35-page order in favor of the Corps and Ocean Isle, dismissing the case. Obviously, the Audubon Society has the ability, and let's be candid, the means to appeal it and take it farther. But this is it's a very well written opinion, and I'll disseminate to the board. But it addresses some of the issues that we dealt with the Corps pretty soundly, and it also is a roadmap of where we can learn where they attacked in this case through our process. We can learn from this to make our process even stronger. So I did think that was important. I did want to share that, and I echo former Mayor Burns' sentiments to you, Mr. Peters, and we all wish you well. We're praying for you. That's all I have.
Can you scan that and email it to us?
Yes, sir.
Please.
All right, well, we're ready for the Alderman's report. Let's start with on my left.
Okay. I wasn't here for the last meeting, so I want to echo the comments that I know were made regarding the superb job that everyone did throughout the hurricane. It was a good job. Everybody did a really, really great job, and I think even had it come, it would have been a lot less of a problem than we'd had the year before, because how well everybody worked together. Shifting gears, I'm the town's representative on the Board of Directors for the North Carolina Beach Inlet Waterway Association, known as NC Byways. I remotely participated in a Board of Directors meeting with Byways on Tuesday. Our town is once again given credit for spearheading the efforts to remove the Resource Institute from the state money that was being provided through the Resource Institute last year to the 3 Topsail Island towns. They were going to take a percentage of it as management fees for doing things they didn't know how to manage and didn't need to. But largely what got the ball rolling, and it helped us, and then it ended up also helping the other 2 towns, was the efforts of the mayor communicating with State Senator Harry Brown. So you got recognized. Most of the other business concerned during the meeting was the upcoming annual Byways Conference at Wrightsville Beach in November on the 12th and 13th. There are a number of vacancies on the Board of Directors for Byways, and nominations were asked of the current members of the board, and I've nominated Alderman Mike Benson and Steve Smith from down at Topsail Beach to both fill them. I think there are 3, possibly 4 vacancies, but Steve and Mike both serve as chairman and vice chairman of the Topsail Island Shoreline Protection Commission, respectively, and I think it would be a good fit to tie together what we do on Topsail Island with what the coastal counties and the Beach and Inlet Waterway Association is trying to accomplish at the state level. I've talked to Mike about it. I've sent you an email in response to yours earlier. I sent you the packet that I put together. Okay. So I think the more representation from our island that we can get on that board, the better off it'll be for us, for the whole island. In addition, y'all remember, most of you, our former town manager, Steve Foster. He was a longtime member of Beach and Inlet Waterway Association. One of the board of directors actually got me involved in it. And then when he left here and he was a manager down at Oak Island where he was living, he was a member there, and then into his retirement before he moved off to the western part of the state. I recommended him for a Byways Achievement Award for his efforts. And that concludes my report.
Very good report. Joanne?
So this past 2 weeks ago, I think it was, I attended the J-Board meeting for the town, and it was actually very interesting. There were several people there. There were some from the Real Estate Commission, as you can imagine, because that's who sponsored it. There was also Phil Shepard was there, Mr. Ramirez was there from BASE, and some others. But the two things I walked away with from that meeting were of very interest to our town. Is there's going to be a new elementary school, if you don't already know, that will be coming in Dixon, not far from the Food Lion, and that's going to go up pretty quickly. So our population here, as it relates to North Topsail Beach, is also going to go up. There's also going to be another one in the Richlands area. They talked, Mr. Ramirez and Phil Shepard talked a lot about the terminal growing project, that and it was very clear to me that we hadn't been communicating with them directly. So after the meeting, I've spoke to them as well as David Cotton, and I've asked Laura to just get a session together where we could sit down and talk about it. Because Mr. Ramirez is still talking about having, the base is very interested in this, right? They're still wanting a structure on their side as well to make sure the inlet stays open. So it just seems like those meetings we had years ago where we were in the room with them, it stopped there. So I just want to get us back together. I don't think we're going to solve all the world problems at that one meeting, but if we can figure out how to effectively work together and communicate on an ongoing basis moving forward, I think that'll be big steps for us.
Okay. Very good. I would point out the Division of Coastal Management has taken the position that they will no longer regulate federal lands. Okay, so if the base wants a terminal growing, okay, that they need to pursue it themselves at the federal level, not.
I think they just want to talk with us because their concern is if they don't have a structure on their side, that whatever we do on our side will negatively impact them. And that's certainly not anybody's goal to impact anybody in a negative fashion. So I think we start by having a conversation, and if we can provide them some direction or ongoing.
I agree. I think, we see where it goes. I'm skeptical that the Marine Corps is going to throw any money at anything like that. But that doesn't stop the talk.
Well, Onslow County's also asked Mr. Ramirez, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But Onslow County's also asked Mr. Ramirez for a letter of recommendation as to what he thinks for the groin or not. And I didn't get the impression from talking with him in the meeting that he really felt like he was in the position to make that type of.
He's not.
Right, so let's just get together with him.
He's a mid-grade civil servant who's a retired Marine Master Gunnery Sergeant, and he's a public affairs specialist. And so a public affairs specialist won't tell you no, but he may never tell you yes. Right. But I'm all about, and I'm the most skeptical guy in this room about getting the Marine Corps to spend a dime on a groin, but I'm all about having the talks. I'm all about being willing to sit down with them and break bread or break beer bottles or whatever they want to do. But I'd love to see it happen. Who knows?
I don't think it can hurt.
No.
So it was a good outcome out of that meeting for sure.
Okay. Jerry.
I would just like to thank the town for their assistance with Topsail Island Jeep Week. that we had last week. It was very well. For those of you that don't know, we had probably 150 Jeeps up and down the island. On Thursday, the town allowed us to go on to the north end, and we only had about 20 Jeeps up there on Thursday. So that was very nice. We also were on Topsail Island, or on the Topsail Beach one day, and we had an obstacle course in the Holly Ridge area one day. It was very, very successful Jeep week, so I'd like to thank the town for participating in that. Would also like to remind everybody to kind of be careful out there with the rip currents. I know we're seeing a lot of warnings about it, but apparently people aren't paying attention. I just saw something come across where they may have gotten someone pulled out of Surf City tonight. There's been a couple of issues at Curry Beach, so those warnings are real, people. Please pay attention. And thank you for showing up tonight.
Thank you, Jerry. Michael?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to recognize the Boy Scout troop that's here. Maybe the leader could identify yourself and tell us a little about your troop. I assume you're here for a civics lesson, but go ahead.
I'm Casey Barnes. I'm the Scoutmaster of Troop 937. I was here about 4 years ago with my oldest son and his older brother and his father when we met actually at the City Hall. These 8 scouts represent about a third of our troop. They are currently in citizenship in the community merit badge. So one of the requirements is that they have to come to a meeting, whether it be town, some municipal meeting, hear what is said, kind of take a report on it, and then they also have to interview somebody from the government and then talk with them about just some issues that they might be having. So since you all will be going into the closed door session, I'm going to be looking to you 3 gentlemen. If they can hit you up right afterwards, that would be great. 5 minutes of your time. But with our Troop 937, we're at Sneed's Ferry, but there is no troop in North Topsail, so we cover North Topsail, and we also cover Holly Ridge, so the Dixon area, so to speak. So again, this is about a third of our troop. So we have both junior high and high school, all Dixon except for one who goes to Newbridge and Jacksonville. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, and one that's in early college up in Jacksonville. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank the audience that has participated tonight. It's one of our bigger turnouts. Thank you for your interest in your local government, and those of you that are listening and watching online, if you ever have a question and would like to think that I might be able to answer, please email me or call me. I'm willing to try to answer questions at all times. That's my report.
Thank you, Michael. Okay. That concludes the Alderman's report. Now I need a motion to go into.
Mr. Peters.
Oh, Dick, I'm sorry. How quick I forget. Richard, anything you want to add to tonight's meeting? I guess not. All right. You got unplugged. Okay. So I need a motion to go in closed session per the agenda item.
I'll make a motion that we enter into closed session.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. You're